Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, both online and those of you that are here in the office, and welcome to the meeting. We're going to start today's meeting with first a call to order, seeing that we have quorum, and I'd like to invite Paul Sapiris for the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Chair. Metrolinx acknowledges that we connect communities by building and operating transit within the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, for whom these lands continue to have great importance. Treaties between First Nations and governments cover these lands, and the promises contained in these treaties remain relevant to this day. Metrolinx and its employees are committed to understanding the history of these lands and the continued impact of colonization, and take responsibility for actions to advance reconciliation. Metrolinx will continue to seek the knowledge, expertise, and experience of Indigenous partners and commits to doing business in a manner that is built on a foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. And Chair, one of the important things of land acknowledgements is for individuals to do their personal reflections on their truth and reconciliation journeys. And I've had the good fortune of interacting with Senator Murray Sinclair. And for those of you who haven't had the good fortune of meeting with him, he was an incredible Canadian. And in those meetings, Murray had a very important message. He said, education is what got us here, and education will get us out. And he really was reflecting on the importance of education in terms of improving our truth and reconciliation journey as a country and as people of this country. And he is was such a powerful visionary and intellect with respect to framing the truth and reconciliation story, and to talk about the importance of education. And I think what really resonated and brought it home for me is my young nieces and nephews who, in school for the first time, were learning about residential schools, and quite frankly, generations in the past who never learned this. So I think the sage words of Murray Sinclair were very powerful and starting to take hold here in Canada. And I think certainly from a Metrolinx perspective, it's important for all of us to realize that we are connecting the Six Nations community with our Go Bus service. And truth and reconciliation starts with connecting communities, and certainly we're trying to do our part and continue to do our part as our capital projects emerge.
Thank you, Paul. Great message. Thank you very much. The following correspondence has been distributed to the board. We received a letter from E. Marcus received on November 25th of 2025 regarding a safety incident at the Barrie Go. There's also another letter from M. Matos and R. Ciccarelli received November 26, 2025 regarding Mount Dennis. And a third letter came from Transport Action Ontario received on November 26, 2025 regarding the renaming rapid transit stations. So that's for the board members, it's in your correspondence. Also in our agenda today, as usual, we have our quarterly divisional reports along with progress updates on rapid transit and going up and capital projects related to that. We also review campaigns and events from the fall, including performance related to ridership, customer satisfaction, and service changes. Fair bylaw changes will also be discussed. Just for everybody to note, there's a slight change to the agenda. The order of the presentation has switched items 9 and 10 only from the original agenda. Going up capital project progress report will proceed first after the CEO report, followed by the rapid transit projects progress report. So with that, I invite Michael Lindsay, our President and CEO, to share a safety moment and give his CEO report. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, directors. Good to see you all. Good morning to everybody who's joining us in person and online. Chair, in respect of a safety moment, I think I'd like to talk about an incident that happened at the Kennedy Grade Crossing about a week ago. As people will have seen, train 7711 coming from Stouffville, contacted a dump truck that was in the right-of-way. This immediately led to the professional set of things that we do at Metrolinx whenever we have such an incident. Was our safety equipment working in the right way? What was the root cause associated with this accident? Did the train crew perform in the way that ultimately they should have? I'm delighted to say that in the case of this particular incident, not only were fortunately there no significant injuries, but also the checks that we did, sir, validated that, indeed, the train crew had reacted not only as per protocol, but exceptionally well, that the teams of first responders, including people from York Region that showed up, attended to the accident in the right way, that the Metrolinx teams that are responsible for dealing with people whose travel has been interrupted through such an incident did precisely what they needed to do, and that the various security infrastructure that we had at that level crossing had worked in the right way. This was, unfortunately, an incident wherein a vehicle entered a level grade crossing with no clear way to get out of it and became stuck in place and was contracted by a train. I would say that notwithstanding the specific event, Mr. Chair, we at Metrolinx remain committed to thinking about how we are mitigating the risk of level grade crossings across our network. We're going to continue to talk about Go Expansion today, a program which has already addressed some of the highest risk grade crossings in our region and will continue to do so. But I would want both the board and members of the public to understand that we continue to look not only at the physical sequestration of our operations from vehicular traffic, but also at some of the technological solutions that might ultimately play a role in mitigating this risk. Whether it is the deployment of different forms of barriers, whether it is different types of alarm systems, all is on the table as we continue to try to address this very real risk that continues to exist on our network, particularly as we dramatically increase the amount of service and weekly trips that we are providing to customers. So I render that for you, sir, as the safety moment. And with your permission, I'll get into my CEO report.
Thank you, Michael.
Friends, I always have the honor and the privilege at the start of every one of these meetings to recognize people from across Metrolinx who have rendered exceptional service, sometimes, frankly, heroic service, to members of the traveling public. Today, I actually get to recognize the agency and a bunch of people who are just off camera sitting over there as a collective. This fall, Mr. Chair, as you know, we were really, really proud to play a very active role in getting people to see our beloved Toronto Blue Jays as they made a run to the World Series. We worked hard to deliver not only reliable Go service as planned for those events, but also to work with partners in order to lay on extra service on game days, to push our service intervals later into the evenings in order to make the maximum impact that we possibly could by bringing what was a raucous crowd to the Rogers Centre for each and every one of these games. To do that, we had to do a couple of things that I think are worth highlighting. First, as you know, as a part of Go Expansion, we have a massive program of civil infrastructure upgrades that have to happen across our network. Notably, many civil pieces of infrastructure like bridges are over 100 years old on our network and have to be upgraded, rehabilitated in order to take the kind of service volume that we intend to put on those lines. We have major track closures that are happening almost every weekend to progress that kind of work, and we had a robust set of those major track closures planned for this fall. We had to work with partners, construction partners, VIA, Alstom, CN, CPKC, and the TTC to think about dynamically pulling apart those major track closures in order to reestablish service for games. 23 individual construction sites were ultimately impacted by our need to do this, and the team did it. It means that people in our region, and we're deeply grateful for this, now have lived through a set of major track closures through the end of the year to progress that deferred work, particularly on the Lakeshore West Corridor in connection to the Etobicoke Creek Bridge, which needs rehabilitation. And that included doing things that were exceptional in our jurisdiction, like having a major track closure that lasted into Monday, a workday, for the first time in the region. And I would just want to offer a thanks to the traveling public for their patience with us as we did that. We know it was disruptive, but we think, on balance, it was worth it, given the moment that we all collectively had in connection to the Blue Jays. I would say, sir, that we had roughly 70 hours of lead time on a rolling basis to plan all of this incremental service and all of the pulling apart of major track closures. That is a remarkably short amount of time when you consider that typically we would begin planning a major track closure with our partners 52 weeks in advance of any one of these happening. I was really pleased that the operational performance of our wider system remained very good through the whole Blue Jays playoff run. On-time performance continued to be at greater than 92% across the network. There were no significant customer incidents or injuries to report on any game day, which is nothing short of miraculous. And maybe at this point, I would invite Frank Eby, just to offer, he's the Executive Vice President of Customer and Transit Operations, just offer a little bit of the details, Frank, about how we kept people safe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chair. So while safety is everyone's responsibility, I think every team member was really focused around the planning, the meticulous planning, in order to make sure that the Blue Jays World Series games went really safe, seamless, and memorable experience for everybody. Those are the three tenets that we were really focusing on. We had a surge of ridership. We had a number of new riders on our system. We had to make sure that we had very clear communication that was to the point, brief and concise, to allow customers to make informed decisions about how to get to and from the games. We also made sure that we had additional service on our rail and bus service in order to make sure that the event management, especially at Union, managed and catered for that. All of this was all underpinned by effective communication at each journey stage to help the customers navigate, in some cases, some of their new surroundings as they moved through to and from the games. So some of the specifics of that. So we provided extra service in Up Express. So we wanted to make sure that the customers that were coming in through the airports were able to get to the games, to Union, and back very safely. We had a lot of learning from previous events, such as Taylor Swift, which allowed us to really make sure that our planning was at the ultimate location, for the ultimate locations. We recognised that because of the nature of the games, throughout that 4-week period, we wanted to make sure that we had the service and we could hold the service. So we changed the timetable in to match the customer demand after games and just before the games. We also made sure that the rail service had internal information for those customers so that it helped before they actually got off the trains. We had a number of things that we had to do, not just in our area, but also around the city. So we worked very closely with the TTC, the City of Toronto, Rogers Centre, Major League Baseball teams, as well as Toronto Police, Fire Service and Emergency Services, to ensure that our planning and our scenario planning matched any eventuality that might come in place. We had a local operations centre here at Union Station, and that was really informative around how we moved customers and our staff around to meet that demand. Overall, we wanted to make sure that everyone got to the games safely and returned back. And as Michael has pointed out, we wanted also to make sure that we were able to shift the times of our event planning because of what was happening elsewhere in our construction timetable. This integrated approach made sure that the communications that we gave to our customers was fun, but also informative. And we made sure that we were also continuously coordinating directly with all the different parties to make sure it was safe and everyone got there safely and returned home also. So it's just a bit of summary of some of the behind the scenes things that we were doing in order to make sure that we could make a major event which had hundreds of thousands of people, many of them unfamiliar to the city and to transit, to get to the World Series in a very safe manner.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. So, Mr. Chair, once more with feeling to our operations and safety teams, the capital project team, the payments team, the communications team, the marketing team, and to our external partners at CN, CPKC, Alstom, VIA, and the Toronto Transportation Commission, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would say as a final thought on this one, sir, that we are proud but never satisfied. I think many of the lessons that we learned when it comes to providing this kind of service around a major sporting happening will be directly influential of the way that we think about the World Cup in 2026. And planning for that has already started in partnership with those partners. Sir, just to highlight across various facets of our strategy some of the accomplishments and key developments of the last quarter, I think it's been a remarkable quarter in the sense that we are getting to the completion of some major projects that bring immediate benefit to riders, neighbors, community members across the region. Was delighted that for the first time in 4 years, we opened a brand new GO station at Confederation. And then just a couple of weeks later, we opened another one at Mount Dennis for GO and UpX traffic. Paul Judge, Andrew Hope will be joining us in a moment to share more updates specifically on many of these projects. I don't want to steal their thunder, but I'm very proud that some of the long-fused investments in connection to projects for our riders are now coming to realization. Equally, I'd be remiss if I didn't celebrate that the Finch West LRT has now been confirmed to enter service for riders as Line 6 on the 7th of December. Really, really proud of that accomplishment too, and would salute partners at the TTC with whom we've worked through the revenue service demonstration phase and now on the pathway to operations to think about how we bring that safe, reliable, very fast transit system into being for riders. We're going to talk about GO expansion today, Mr. Chair. I think it's always worthwhile to look backwards before we look forwards to talk about what has been achieved on GO expansion. A couple of key statistics that I think are worth reading into the record. Since 2017, there has already been a remarkable increase in GO service on most, if not all, of our corridors. We have added 228 trips on the Lakeshore West Line. That's a 33% increase in service. We have added 190 trips on the Lakeshore East Line. That's a 31% increase in service. We've added 340 trips per week on the Kitchener Line, a 226% increase in service. 90 weekly trips have been added on the Stouffville Line, 52% increase in service. And 112, Mr. Chair, on the Barrie Line, which is a 94% increase in service. The investments that have already been made in the ground are already allowing us to increase service on all of these lines, even as we continue to take steps towards the interim milestones, which we'll describe in a moment, that will allow us to unlock even more service. And I think it's particularly noteworthy that this quarter, Metrolinx brought 30-minute weekend service to the Kitchener Line for the first time. First weekend service to the community of Kitchener that we have been able to offer. All of this increase in service, sir, board directors, has allowed us to start setting new records in respect of ridership. In October, we achieved across both GO and UpX 7.5 million trips. That is our biggest month ever for GO. It's an increase of 11.8% year over year, and it represents a recovery in respective volume against pre-pandemic levels of well in excess of 110% of where we were. So to all of those who are selecting GO Transit to get them to work, to school, to fun, we're deeply grateful, and we're proud that we're already providing more options for people from a service perspective. It's worth noting that while we've been surging this service, we have continued to consistently hit both our on-time performance targets as well as our customer satisfaction targets, all of which are meeting or exceeding the targets set by the board. I would note, dwelling on payments for a moment, sir, that our Presto network continues to grow. in new and novel ways, bringing Presto closer to people and where they move about in our region. I would highlight that 4 Presto fare vending machines are going to be located at key street corners in Scarborough and North York, bringing that system closer to 18,000 riders at those locations. And our Presto Perks program has delivered 145 offers, providing almost $2.3 million in customer saving. So the continued modernization, the added functionality of our Presto system, and putting it right where people are so that they can access it continues to be an incredibly important piece of our strategy. I would note under the rubric of safety, Mr. Chair, that we continue to progress a corporate priority of effectively making sure that all of our construction sites are completely segregated from our operating railroad. The red zone, green zone approach, we call it a prohibition on open line working, has now expanded across all corridors. 92% of our jobs were utilizing this approach in the first month of its existence. This is all about ensuring that as we maintain these high levels of service, but continue to do effectively open heart surgery on our GO network as we seek to expand, that we are never putting construction workers and riders and those associated with our operations into conflict. So we will continue to progress that strategy as a priority. I want to note that we, on an internal basis, concluded a recent survey of our employees. A pulse survey, we called it. We were gratified that 75% of the organization chose to give us feedback on our performance. In the main, I think engagement is high. I would, proud but not satisfied, point at 2 things where I think we as a board and as an agency will continue to want to focus in the coming year. The first is on career development, in particular for our frontline staff, to make sure that we are providing pathways for the people who work on our front lines to continue to not only gain relevant experiences and expertise, but also to chart a pathway for their career. And second, I would offer that we want to make sure that we are still listening to our employees in respect of the feedback that they are giving us about the ways and methods in which we work, inclusive of conforming with the government's direction vis-a-vis a return to office. We are obviously, as an agency, I think, ahead of the game, since so much of our employee base is frontline deployed, and 4 out of 5 days are spent in the office already by Metrolinx employees. But we want to help employees continue to navigate what is a more broad return to office, recognizing that that represents a very big change for many people across not only Metrolinx, but all of the organizations of the region. Finally, sir, I was honored to attend the Metrolinx Excellence Awards earlier this month, just shining a light on some of the people who've achieved incredible things, from safety to innovation and beyond. We will find ways to give appropriate recognition to those individuals through our website, social media posts. There is so much that happens in this organization that I think is genuinely impressive and awe-inspiring, and it is the individual people of the organization who produce it. Quickly, just on future transit delivery, pleased to report that our bi-level 2 coach refurbishment program marked a significant milestone. The 36th renovated GO coach was delivered from North Bay. That brings the program past its halfway point, us turning over and modernizing the fleet that we use to serve people. On the rapid transit side, without stealing Andrew's thunder, I'll just note that with the release of the Yonge North Subway Extension System, Rail and Signals contract, every element of this government's announced subway expansion is now in market. A remarkable capstone to a journey that we've been on for 7 years. And for what it's worth, if you go to the Yonge North Subway Extension launch shaft sites now, you will see the excavation that is happening in anticipation of the tunnel boring machines arriving there and starting to chew earth. Speaking of which, our Ontario Line tunnel boring machines, which have names, Libby and Corky, are coming to the exhibition portal in January, where they will be assembled and we will start tunneling operations. I would note, too, outside of the City of Toronto that the Civil and Utilities Work RFP for Hamilton LRT closed on the 11th of November with 4 pre-qualified parties submitting a proposal. That is an incredibly healthy, competitive response to the Hamilton LRT project and is a big procurement milestone as we think about bringing the project into being. At this point, sir, I would typically hand over to Paul to start his update. Maybe I will invite Paul to come to the table, and I will begin to give the update, if I could, sir,
Sure.
on GO expansion. Chair, you will know that one of the objectives that the board set for me as the CEO was to bring clarity and transparency to the GO expansion program. We are sharing today, as a part of this public board meeting, several slides which I think are quite informative and will give people a sense of the forward-looking journey that we are on from a GO expansion perspective. The first is entitled Corridor Missions Guiding Incremental Growth. What you will see here, it's a busy slide by design, but I think a very important one, is at the bottom you will see our current service levels that we are achieving. And then for each one of the corridors, you can work your way up the page to see what dependencies in respective work have to be done in order to achieve further service enhancements on each one of these corridors. This is a mix of civil infrastructure projects, signalization projects, station delivery, electrification in certain cases, but this slide is intended to be a public statement, right, of the works that allow us to get from where we are today to where we intend to go. Behind that are 2 other slides, the first of which focuses on the works that we have delivered to date to enable an expanded GO rail network. Hopefully this really brings home what I was saying earlier about the civil investment that has already been made. So for instance, we've already addressed 3 road-rail grade separations, consistent with my safety share, and 1 rail-to-rail grade separation, all of which helps mitigate risk. We have added over 45 kilometers of widened railway corridors for additional track installation. We've added additional platforms at 7 existing stations, and we've already opened 4 new GO stations at Bloomington, Old Elm, Confederation, and Mount Dennis. You can then look at the third slide, which shows you what is currently under construction or approaching delivery. This is a heat map that shows you line by line which projects we're working on right now and which ones we are getting ready to ultimately go to market, to ultimately issue. So taken together, I hope that this establishes a bit of a dashboard for us as an agency about what it is we are intending to build, what it is we have built, and what it is we're going to build. With that, maybe, Paul, I'll hand to you for just a few updates going right now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michael. I think it's worth saying that behind every one of those yellow labels on the final slide there is an active project, and where we've got teams feverishly working to I think we're going a bit too early on this. Where we've got teams feverishly working to deliver the benefits and deliver the transit that Michael's been talking about. I'd like to just start with one of the yellow boxes, which is East Harbour here, and I'd like to finish with something I'd like to do more of, which is where we turn one of the boxes from yellow to a different colour, lilac, with one of our new stations. So this is our East Harbour Transit Hub on the Lakeshore East Line. It's a major project for our interconnected network. It will eventually be seeing interchange with the Ontario line, and it will be the second busiest GO station on the network when completed. In March, the project entered the implementation phase, which followed completion of the early works. The drone footage you can see here shows the scale of the site and the tremendous progress that the crews have made. The main retaining wall that will separate the station building from the future Ontario line platforms is now clearly visible. You'd have seen it just come across the screen a minute ago, and building excavations for foundations will commence soon. Next to the retaining wall that will separate the station building, you can see Eastern Avenue, and you can see progress on the new Eastern Avenue Bridge. We are preparing for the new deck pour that's going to be scheduled for the first quarter of next year. Crews are also working on the new pedestrian bridge over the future Broadway Avenue extension. The abutment and retaining walls are underway, and the first sections of the piers that will support the first half of the new bridge are now complete. So throughout our site, you'll see blue barriers. These are where crews have now set up what we call continuous work zones. Within these barriers, our crews have equipment that are physically separated from the active railway, so they're both able to work productively. Safely. This allows work and train service to proceed simultaneously as well. So keeping workers separated from trains, key part of that. So here you can see further along east our Bowmanville extension project. So this is critical to delivering rail service to communities beyond Oshawa as quickly as we can. So this will see us extend the Go Lakeshore East service nearly 20 kilometres, which will deliver a 15-minute reduction of in-vehicle time between Bowmanville and Union Station. The project is now really ramping up month by month as design and construction planning activities reach completion, and we start to see more on-the-ground construction activity. So since our last update, I'm really pleased to share that the new water main was successfully installed across the Albert Street Bridge, and Oshawa has been accepted and has been accepted by the Durham region. So as we continue to advance the early works, we are focused on demolishing properties along Simcoe Street in Oshawa, which will enable the ultimate demolition of Simcoe Bridge. You can see that in this photo here. Sorry to the coffee lovers of Oshawa, particularly Tim Hortons, but the transit improvements will be worth it, I promise you. The replacement bridge will provide enough room for dedicated passenger tracks underneath, on which the new two-way all-day service will run. Now, Simcoe is just one of what will be 13 spots along the corridor, where the railway corridor goes over or under the road or pedestrian routes using bridges, which will need to be expanded, replaced or demolished in order to fit the additional passenger tracks. So to help deliver all of the works that we're doing within a live operating environment, we're implementing what we call a network of logistic hubs, which will be supported by engineering trains, which will enable more efficient and important modern methods of construction. These logistics hubs will serve as critical support centres for construction activities, where infrastructure assets will be assembled and fabricated and then taken to site to used by specialist trains all along the rail corridor. Construction is well underway now at 3 of these new logistics hubs. And of course, rail-based construction yards needs rails leading in and out of it to function, which is what you're seeing here. So 2 of the tracks have been commissioned at our Mimico location, with 2 tracks at our Obico location to follow later this year. All 3 sites are targeted for commissioning by spring 2026. I also have some news on some of the vehicles that will run over these rails. I know many will have seen this across social media, but our first shipment of engineering trains arrived in Canada this month. There are 3 Placer universal tamping machines and 2 ballast regulators. This equipment will be deployed across the network and will allow us to maintain and install new track much more efficiently. This approach also allows us to make greater progress during the valuable but limited overnight and weekend windows where we can complete these track upgrades. Okay. Now, moving along to Etobicoke, where Metrolinx is delivering significant upgrades to Long Branch GO station. Last month, the future pedestrian tunnel at the east end of the platform was fully excavated, with utilities work now currently fully underway. So the picture here, as you can see, this really highlights the tunnel box, which will eventually form the tunnel interior. So crews have now poured the base of the box, which is what you can see here, and then outwork on the walls and then ultimately the roof. So once complete, the box will then be pushed into the excavating area. So similar to our project at East Harbour, the tunnel work is taking place behind barriers where continuous work zones can be set up, so the work and service can again continue simultaneously and importantly safely. So elsewhere at the station though, the northern section of the east platform is currently being reconstructed. There's a concrete pour completed in late October, and then in early next year the installation of the canopies that will be able to cover for people waiting for the trains will start to go up, and you'll really start to see how the new station is going to look and take shape. So this platform work obviously is occurring in a live railway environment. So it requires construction and operation teams to really coordinate on a real-time, everyday basis with each other to ensure safe and minimise the impact to customers. So once complete, these improvements will give Long Branch GO customers improved access to the station and to the platforms. All right, moving just a further along Lakeshore West. So Metrolinx has partnered with the City of Burlington to replace the former Drury Lane pedestrian bridge. So you can see the new bridge here in the middle of the picture. This officially opened on the corridor on October the 31st and returned a vital connection for the surrounding community. So the modern structure replaced a 53-year-old bridge that had reached the end of its service life and incorporates significant accessibility upgrades, which in turn improve safety and ease of use for pedestrians. The enhancements include longer and more gradual ramps and wider corners, which make the bridge easier to navigate with a bike, a stroller or wheelchair, and now fully meet current accessibility requirements, which is excellent. So the centre span itself measures 2.4 metres in width, 30.5 metres in length, and is roughly 7.7 metres above the rail tracks. Just to give you a bit of context in terms of the engineering, even just for a pedestrian bridge here, the steel truss centre span here alone weighs 60 tonnes, and it will be more than 130 tonnes when concrete and finishing work are included. So I mentioned before it's 7.7 metres above the tracks, so the structure is actually built higher than the bridge before. This is increasing clearance above the existing tracks, and then this additional height here will allow overhead electric lights to be added in the future. And then finally, last but not least, so a yellow to a lilac, and again I'd like to report a lot more of these going forward. Confederation Go Station officially opened on October the 27th. So as you heard from Michael, this was the first opening of a new rail station on the Go network since 2021. It's a milestone that could not have been achieved without the incredible teams here at Metrolinx, but also our construction partners Ellis Don, and our key delivery partners Canadian National Rail as well. And I really could not be prouder of everyone who made this possible. So all existing train trips, so this is the important bit, from Niagara Falls and select trips to and from West Harbour Go will serve Confederation Go Station. This offers communities in East Hamilton and Niagara many more travel options. A total of 13 weekday and 15 weekend trips are now being offered. This new station brings us one step closer to a more connected Greater Toronto and Hamilton region. So with that, I will now pause. If there are any questions?
Directors, any questions? Thank you very much, Paul. Great presentation, much appreciated. With that, we'll turn it over to Andrew Hope, who will talk about the rapid transit capital projects.
Good morning. Pleased to be here to talk about what we've been up to in the rapid transit side of the capital program over the past quarter. And I get the distinct pleasure of actually doing something unusual for us in rapid transit, which is talking about the opening of a new Go Transit station, actually a multimodal hub that'll serve both Go Transit, Up Express, and Eglinton Crosstown when that line opens in the near future. So on November 16th, we were pleased to open the new Mount Dennis Go and Up station, which you can see in the image here. So located at Eglinton and Weston Road at the former Kodak lands, Mount Dennis is a major new transit hub, as I mentioned, connecting the Kitchener Go line, Up Express, Line 5, East Eglinton Crosstown, as well as the TTC bus network. And there's an interesting heritage feature in this building. This station I wanted to point out, which you can see in the right-hand picture, which is what used to be at one time Kodak Building Number 9, which was the employee recreation building when the old Kodak manufacturing plant was in this location for decades and decades. That's been incorporated as an interesting heritage feature into this new station. So this was delivered, actually, the reason I'm talking about this was delivered as part of the ECLRT contract. So an interesting delivery mechanism, and really happy to see this in service now. The community's already seeing major benefits. Journeys to downtown now from the Mount Dennis community are taking about 15 minutes from what was previously over an hour transit journey time. So great to see that. In other news on ECLRT, on October 7th, we began a revenue service demonstration where we have light rail vehicles operating on schedule along all 19 kilometers of the route, but without passengers. And this is really the final key test for this line before we get to substantial completion. Allows us to validate the performance and the reliability, and it's the key gate really for our contractor to get through before substantial completion. So once this RSD period is completed, ECLRT will go through a final certification process with the independent certifier. That includes getting all sign-offs by the independent safety advisor, and will then reach substantial completion, which is a very, very exciting milestone for us. At that point, TTC will complete some final training activities for additional drivers and final preparations, which will allow us to set an opening date for the line, which is very, very exciting news. I know everybody's excited about to see. Moving on. Oops. Just moving about 200 meters west of Mount Dennis. This is an update on the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension project. You can see here we're completing underground tunneling work between Mount Dennis and the Jane Portal, which is about a 500-meter stretch of new tunnels. And work is well underway on this. We've completed, it's about a 500-meter distance. We've completed about 50% of that tunneling activity right now, and I want to tip my cap to the project team and our contractor, Strawbag, who are doing this work. It's very challenging conditions, very sandy soils, which you can imagine if you've tried to dig a tunnel at the beach, very challenging to do, but they're doing an excellent job in making good, steady progress. What you see in the image here, sorry, I've gone back, is the construction and the completion of the construction of the first cross passage, which is connects the two tunnels, and it could be used in an emergency situation where people need to evacuate and get from one tunnel to another. So there'll be a couple of these along the way to provide that connectivity. Back at Mount Dennis Station, which is obviously the other end of the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension, we're well underway in constructing the exit shaft for this tunnel. So the piling is all complete there, and excavation will start very shortly and be completed in early 2026. And then further to the west on Eglinton Crosstown West Extension, out at the undergrounds, the 4 underground stations, Islington, Royal York, and Martin Grove, we've begun piling operations to complete the station box construction, and then excavation will start for those stations in the new year. Moving on to Yonge North Subway Extension, as Michael mentioned in his update, it's been a very busy period on this project as well, which is great to see. I think at the last board meeting back in September, we were celebrating the award of the advanced tunnel contract to a consortium known as North End Connectors, which is led by AECON, FCC, and Gala Canada. So after contract award, I'm happy to report that NEC has mobilized very, very quickly to site. By the end of the summer, we had drill rigs arriving on site and piling operations for the launch shaft of the tunneling, where the tunnel boring machines will launch on their journey south towards Finch Station, began almost immediately. They've made great progress on that piling over the past couple of months, 262 piles installed to date. And basically, the piling is almost completed on the box, except for a small remaining portion on the east side of the box, which is immediately adjacent to the CN rail corridor, which is the Richmond Hill corridor or the Bala subdivision. So CN, as we speak, is doing a track diversion to move that track slightly over so that the piling can be completed on the east side of the launch shaft. So CN will complete that track diversion in the next week. We expect the remaining piles to be installed in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll actually be starting excavation of that launch shaft very, very shortly. And then, as Michael mentioned, another big development in October was the release of the Station Rail and Systems contract, which is the final piece of this project and the subway's program itself in terms of procurement activities. So great to see that as well, and lots of interest in that package out with the market. Going all the way over to Scarborough, happy to report that our tunnel boring machine, Diggy Scardust, is progressing well. To date, we've completed 3,134 meters of mining along the way, and this is a large single bore tunnel, so different than the tunnel boring that we've done on other projects where we've had 2 smaller bores. This is about a 12-meter diameter tunnel that's being excavated. So it's the TBM is currently stopped for planned maintenance. We've got several locations along the tunnel drive where we stop and we do checks. Particularly, it's areas where we have really appropriate conditions to do that, either soil conditions or we're in a place where it's very stable and accessible to do this work. So they're currently doing checks, including doing tunnel belt conveyor extensions. As the tunnel gets longer, the conveyor that takes all the muck to the extraction shaft also has to get longer, as does the high voltage cables that power the machine. They'll do inspections and repairs to the cutter head and tools that do the digging on the machine, and that work is happening right now. And then we expect that will relaunch in a few weeks' time and make its way down towards the next stopping point, which is Lawrence East Station, which we expect the TBM will arrive at around February 2026. So good progress over the past number of months since the spring on Scarborough tunneling, averaging about 12 meters of tunneling per day, that factors in stops for maintenance. And we've been able to achieve up to 85 meters of boring per week, we're really, really pleased to see, which is good. Moving over to Ontario Line, I want to highlight the start of major excavation work, which is happening at the future Ontario Line Pape Station. This is a really critical piece of the Ontario Line. This is where it will connect in with Line 2 of the TTC subway network. And obviously, when you think of one of the key functions of Ontario Line is a relief line to Line 1 and everything else, this is a key part of actually fulfilling that function, is having this connection with Line 2 at Pape and Danforth. So construction of the station requires us to excavate under the existing Line 2 subway box, and we have to get down deep enough that we can not only fit the Ontario Line tracks and the station platform, there's also a passenger concourse above that, and then the structural supports that will keep the existing Line 2 subway safely in place while this construction is going on, and then obviously into the future when Ontario Line's in operation. So as a result, this is really, really critical to the overall project from a schedule perspective, as you can imagine. So looking ahead, excavation will be followed by the installation of needle beams underneath the TTC subway box, and that's really the critical piece here that happens to keep that subway box safe and supported and stable while all the construction is happening around it for the balance of the construction period. And last but not least, I know Michael mentioned this, but I definitely have to talk about Finch West LRT. This might be the last time I update the board from my perspective on the Finch West LRT, so little victory lap here. As Michael mentioned, on Finch West LRT, we are very, very pleased to share that we've reached substantial completion on November 12th. After many, many years of hard work and by both our project team, DC, and of course our contractor, Mosaic, have all worked very hard to get to this milestone. It's been no small feat. It's been years and years of design and construction, and we also want to thank the community for their patience during the construction period. We know this was challenging, particularly when you're with all the utility relocations and the disruption to pedestrians and businesses and obviously drivers in the corridor. We know it's all going to be worth it now when people get a chance to go and ride the line as it comes into service. So very, very pleased to end there for my update today. I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have.
No question, more of a comment, if you don't mind. First of all, on behalf of the board, I want to congratulate Michael and the team on a number of different things. I keep hearing the word safety, and it's so important to this organization. I appreciate that. That's a huge success that we're doing these projects in a safe manner. Really excited about the ridership increases, and congratulations on all of these advancements of these projects. So unless there's any board of directors, Paul, do you have a question?
Yeah, and maybe, Michael, this probably extends over Andrew and Paul's update. Certainly with the climate of tariffs and Buy Ontario, Buy Canadian initiatives, how are you and your team thinking about these major capital infrastructure projects and how maybe local Ontario or Canadian businesses might benefit from these?
Thanks, Paul. We're trying to make sure that to the greatest extent possible, the Canadian supply chain participates to these major capital projects. That was already an objective of ours in a very real way, and it's worth noting, particularly in respect of labor and the workforces that work on these projects, that is disproportionately Canadian across the board. But thinking about input commodity is something that we've certainly now been a little bit more intentional about. We would also note the passage of legislation by the provincial government associated with Build Ontario. But to give you one illustrative example, we've had a very, very good conversation with our industry about the use of Canadian steel for civil infrastructure projects in particular. We've talked a lot about the replacement of bridges, both across, for what it's worth, the Go Capital portfolio and the RT portfolio. And when you see things like these massive spans on Jarvis and Sherborne being lifted into place, we're quite proud that actually the fabrication of that steel was all done in Canada. So it's a continuing conversation with our market. If I point at one of the facets of this conversation that we have to have, we need to make sure that in specifying the country of origin for an input commodity, that we are still getting the same warranties and reps from our counterparts who are doing the building. So far, that's gone well, but if I was to point at one of the things where we'd want a continuing conversation with the board, it would be on that.
Thank you very much. That's a great development, and I think consistent with both federal and provincial policy here in this regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I want to apologize for some inconvenience. Apparently, the audio is not working well right at the moment. I apologize for that. The meeting is being recorded, and we'll make that available to all of the anybody who's interested in that. But my apologies on the audio this morning. So can we enjoy the ride, and we'll invite Mark Childs to do his presentation. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, board members. And I will make no apology in reiterating some of the results and some of the enthusiasm and excitement that I think was shared across the organization as it related to the last few months, particularly as it relates to sports. As we not only enjoy the ride today, but we recognize that the whole region across the country, as well as those folks coming into our region, also enjoyed the game during both the season and the postseason of the Blue Jays. What I will do is refrain from repeating too many information points other than to iterate maybe the most important ones, but hopefully bring to life with a few pictures some flavor of the experience that our customers did experience, and for that we thank them for choosing transit. So as Michael had alluded, October was an all-time record high month for our organization in terms of ridership, and I am happy to share that that momentum of ridership continues as we look forward through to the end of our fiscal year, and we're excited to see that come to fruition behind all of the initiatives to encourage folks of the region to choose transit. Specifically then, if I just focus on some of the images to bring to life some of the accomplishments, there is no question in my mind that we all felt the 30-year pent-up excitement for the Jays making the postseason and going as far as they did, and we celebrate them as well in their accomplishment, and we look forward to the next season with them. I will share that the ridership for the Blue Jays year over year was up 34%. So an increasing number of people choosing transit as the fastest, convenient way and the safest way to get to the game, and that was certainly by no means not supported by the fact that we added trips, we modified trips, and as we heard earlier, accommodated some changes in the track closure plans, which we recognize had on some knock-on effects for customers. What I would say is there is no question in my mind that our frontline teams, our back-end teams, ensured that the trips were as efficient, as effective as they could be to get people to the game, and certainly that's attested by the report back from our customers on the satisfaction of those trips as well overall. For the month and for the year. I would say, as was highlighted already, we are taking all of the feedback humbly in terms of customer feedback and building that into future activities, whether that be supporting sports, concerts, or any other trip of choice, and specifically both the Indy and FIFA for 2026. And I think there's a lot of great wealth, and we thank our customers for that feedback. I would say, as we transition, of course, from the Blue Jays and our collaboration with them as we head into next year, the fourth year of a collaboration, we're very excited about the prospect of what's ahead with both the Leafs and the Raptors. And as you can see here in some of the images, helping our customers have timely, real-time information about trips, not just to the game through the Go Transit website, trip planning tools, but also highlighting in stadium when we are able to modify our return trips to help get our customers not just to the game, but safely home. And of course, with as we've heard heard, the added new weekend trips on the Kitchener line, providing greater access to sports venues across the region. In fact, not just at Scotiabank Arena here for community members and residents along that line. I will say there's a lot more excitement in plans for the Leafs and Raptors in our collaboration and partnership with MLSE, and so stay tuned for a lot of great, exciting customer and fan experiential opportunities as we sort of look ahead into the season. One of which, of course, if you haven't yet gotten in a Raptors game, the Presto perks for a select home Raptors games can give you a great 20% discount. So check out prestocard.ca. It's one of the 75 active promotions and activations that is available through the Presto Perks program, which is really exciting. It isn't just about Major League sports, though, and worldwide events coming in 2026 to our region. It's also about sport across the region, and super happy to share with the board that over the last year we've partnered with over 20 sports teams and events across the region, and that continues. Currently, again, if you are looking for reference of something to do as we enter into the holiday season, there are about 13 Presto Perks offers for either going to watch games, actually potentially even going to the Scotiabank Arena tour, or actually participating in a whole myriad of sports and physical activities. So we encourage our customers to check those out as we head into the holiday season. It's not just about the game and getting to the game. It's also about ensuring that ride, that journey, either at the destination or origin is also pleasurable and enjoyable. And I'm happy to share with the board that over the last couple of months, we've exceeded now over 1 million retail transactions. So customers finding their way to a coffee or a beverage on their way to the station, from the station, or for the ride. We're super excited to be able to expand our offering with our partners in retail. Again, if you happen to be coming across Union Station in your travels through the holidays, be sure to carry that Presto card or that Presto card reference in your wallet, because there are many great offers for retail offers for our customers actually in Union Station and beyond. So what we would say as I conclude here, it's been a great fall, certainly more exciting than we've typically had, at least for 30 years from my recollection. But as we head into the holiday season, whether you're heading to something to do with sports, the arts and entertainment, destinations across our region, or even holiday events, be sure, please, to choose Go Transit, Up Express, and using your Presto card. And specifically for those folks who are planning to revel on New Year's Eve, happy to wish you all, in absolutely premature celebration, a Happy New Year, and please be sure to take our transit as your option safely to get home and ride free after 7 p.m. with us on the 31st. So with that, I'll conclude with enjoy the ride.
Thank you very much, Mark. Any questions for Mark, directors? No? Thank you. So I think we have fair bylaw change that we'd like to discuss at this moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just introduce, just typically because we're a new combo up here, Mark and Frank. We just wanted to reflect on what we've heard today about the opening of Mount Dennis specifically, and recognize that there does need to be a bylaw change to accommodate obviously both the go and the up stop and the relevant fares for that particular stop. And there is in the paper, which we've assumed is read, there is a fare table that does need to be included as part of that bylaw resolution. And specifically, as it relates to Go, that is a related fare by distance calculation that obviously, as a reference point, would provide travel to Mount Dennis from Union of about $4.60. And then for Up Express, as a stopped-based fare structure, we've balanced the fare between Bloor and Weston to ensure that we reflect Mount Dennis correctly. So illustratively in the fare table, the Mount Dennis to Union fare is at $5.50. Frank, I don't know if you want to say a few things about Mount Dennis since we've been in operation for a little bit before we move to the
So it opened November 16th. The Kitchener line saw seamless integration between the service at Mount Dennis. In the 10 days between 16th of November to the 26th of November, we saw around 3,000 boardings at that station. Really, really encouraging to see. Even split between of that 3,000 between Go customers and Up customers. But definitely the interchange has really been another key addition to the network, allowing customers further choice in terms of how they move their travel options. So really, really positive early signs.
And then just quickly, the second bylaw change is an expansion, I should say, of the Veterans year-round ride-free program that in March of this year started with Go, and as of January the 1st, I'm happy to share that that program is expanded to include Up Express, initially through a ID card validation, and then subsequently through the Presto system.
Great. So this is part of the resolution that we ensure that all Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans, including regular and reserve forces, have access to free travel on Up Express beginning January 1st, 2026. And this also includes Go Rail and Up Express to Mount Dennis Station. So with that, could I get a motion to move that, please? Paul, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor? Moved, passed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, that brings us to our quarterly reports. And just for the board members to be aware, there are 8 quarterly reports in your package. Therefore, for you, I'm sure you've had a chance to look at them and read them if there's any questions. If not, I will thank everybody for participating in today's meeting. Again, our apologies for the audio. We will make sure that it is recorded and available to you. And I want to thank all of you that participated online and those that are in the office. I appreciate you being here today. That concludes today's meeting.